Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Colin. I'm here to do my final video for today. Uh, the original Halloween and Halloween 2018. So, what did 2018 get right, and what did 2018 really get wrong? You know, 40 plus years ago, John Carpenter, Ernie Blands, Deborah Hill, Mustafa Akkad, they made magic together. They really did. Now, 40 years later, magic happened again. Now, I do think the original holds up way better than 2018. Do I think 2018 is the best sequel? No, I don't. I think it has a lot of issues. And really, when I look at the original Halloween, you got to really put it in its context for what it is. This is a movie that, in many ways, was changed due to its budget. So, a movie that was supposed to look more random than what it was. Now, you could say he kills his sister, which he does in the original, in John Carpenter's Halloween. He starts by killing his sister. After, now, in November of 63, so sometime after the murder, sometime in November of 63, Michael Myers is committed to Smith Grove, Warren County Sanitarium. From 1963 to 1978, he is under the care of one Dr. Sam Loomis, or Dr. Samuel Loomis, whatever you want to say. So, Dr. Sam Loomis, to keep this simple, for 15 years, Dr. Loomis spends 4 hours a day. And yes, I'm going to include a bit of the television version just to clarify. And that's where I'll stop that. So, he spent, because I think that would be about correct, 4 hours a day. So, he spends 4 hours a day with Michael Myers. For first 8 years, he tries to reach him. The next 7, he's just trying to keep him locked up. He doesn't want him released. It doesn't really say if they try to transfer him in between all those other years. Maybe they do, and that's what he's meaning. I don't think they're trying to free him in those years, mind you, because remember what Loomis says he was trying to reach him for 8 years. Well, okay, 63, 64, 65, and why I only counted those years is in July of 65. Now, whether I believe they actually are dead or not, Donald and Edith Myers die in a car accident. Now, I don't necessarily believe they died, but that's my opinion. I think they faked their death. Now, does that matter? No, it goddamn doesn't. But so they're gone. So again, still the first 8 years, even after the death of his parents, Loomis is trying to reach Michael, and I commend him for that. The next 7, he's just trying to keep him locked up. And by what I interpret that as, he's trying to prevent him from being transferred because he feels Myers will just try to escape. That's what I interpret that as. Now, obviously, he's going to go to a judge for some reason. And I got to believe this is Michael Myers sentencing. Him actually being sentenced to something. And I think Loomis just wants him under the care of him. And Loomis wants to give him something. I forget what exactly it is. Sulforacine. I'm probably mispronouncing that to death. And Merrington Whittington says, "Well, he'll barely be able to sit up now." And he goes, "That's the idea." Now, I never quite understood why he never wanted him to be able to sit up. Like, what was he like? Does things fit in the 2018 narrative that Loomis was trying to kill Michael? I will get into that here in a moment. So they go to pick him up. There's a bunch of inmates. We know the story. Michael escapes. Michael escapes. The evil is gone from here, as Dr. Loomis says. Now, here's where things get interesting. Remember, they can't do exactly what John Carpenter wants. They don't have the budget for that. So they're not going to do the whole town. They're not going to do a bunch of random murders. We meet Jamie Lee Curtis's character. Her name is Laurie Strode. She is a high school student, but she also babysits for money. She's been doing this for some time. My sister-in-law, I think, was babysitting at the age of 13 or 14. I'm not exactly sure. So that's what I'm going to chalk Laurie Strode's babysitting days as, when she was very young, right as she was a teenager. So age 13. So let's say Laurie Strode was babysitting since 13. She would be the most trusted babysitter in Haddonfield. And it seems to be, and really who confirms that is Annie herself when she says, you must have a small fortune stashed in babysitting. I'm not trying to jump. I just love the line. So on her way to school, she meets Tommy Doyle, as we all know. And he says, are you going to babysit me tonight? You're going to make popcorn? Yes, yes, yes. Sure. And she drops the key off at the Myers house, and that, my friends, is when Michael Myers sees her. This is where you could chalk things up to happenstance, to fate. It was fate for them to meet. Yes. Is it random? Yes. But this is also where I feel the movie stops being actual random. Because once you pick, a set of people to stalk and follow, it's not random anymore. Those are the people you've picked to stalk and follow. So I feel this movie is partially random. When he is repeatedly stalking Laurie, the boy Laurie babysits, and yeah, he does stalk Tommy in this and her friends. To me, it stops being random. It's not as random as what a lot of people have made this film out to be. Now, it was intended to be more random, sure, but they didn't afford that. They couldn't afford it. So here's where this movie stops being really random, because he has picked certain targets to stalk, whether they're related to him or not. Now, I'm going by the 2018 version, so they're not. Now, well, Laurie isn't, and neither is anyone else. So we go on. Judith's headstone has been stolen. We know by who. By Michael. Some ropes, some knives, and a mask. Here's where things are going to get interesting. Here's where I'm going to split off and go into 2018. And I talked about this in my video of Bracket and Bracket. Dr. Loomis, prior to all this, calls to the police and tells them he's coming. You need to be ready. If you don't, it's your funeral. He's talking to the police. And when he gets there, Lee Brackett seems to greet him. So Lee Brackett, even though he doesn't know Loomis's name, he seems to greet him. So I think he was told that somebody called in. And then he tells them to hold on, because during that time prior to him showing up, we saw Laurie and Annie, and they stopped in. He said, what happened? And Annie asked him what happened. And he said, all the store was broken into. Somebody stole something, probably kids. And she goes, Annie's like, you blame everything on kids. Rope, couple knives, couple Halloween masks, and a couple knives. There's, again, I can't blame him for that. I've talked about that he doesn't know there's been an escape at the mental institution. Now, I talked about how Loomis comes and talks to him. We get to the houses, it's nightfall, okay? And then when we get to the Myers house, I gotta believe by this time, Loomis has told Brackett about the dead body. I gotta believe at least Loomis said about that. So they could believe that there was a body on here, that there is a body. There's been one body. There's been one death. But to me, even if they find that body, which I'm sure they do, what does that really tell Brackett? It doesn't. Just because Michael stole coveralls to Brackett, it doesn't mean, if I'm Sheriff Brackett, it doesn't mean he's coming here. How do I know he's not taking his coveralls, changing his look, and going up to Canada or killing somewhere else and escaping? That's got to be his mindset a bit. Like, this is an escape killer. Why would he just? Why? He has his ticket to freedom, right? Why not use it? Why come back to the place he knows? So what? Now that is a bit Brackett's fault there if he does think that. But I got to put this next part on Loomis a bit. Loomis gets into, they see a dead dog, obviously. They get into the speech about, Loomis gets into the speech about the 15 years. After that, Brackett says about contact, I still think I ought to contact radio and tell people and alert the media. And what Brackett to me is really wanting, he's not wanting to cause a panic. He's wanting to alert people so they know they'll lock their doors. So they know that there's this killer on the loose. There's this escaped mental patient who killed his sister. He doesn't want anybody hurt, or anybody else at least. You know, so I do think initially Brackett took Loomis serious. I think he believed him. But it's Loomis himself that causes that doubt, partial doubt. When Loomis says, no, tell your men to keep their mouths shut and their eyes open. Okay, you're Brackett. You're going out on a patrol. You see people, you see kids parking, trick-or-treating, and getting high. You're not seeing anything out of the ordinary that you haven't seen 1,000 times before. Now, I exaggerated that number. He comes back. He tells them nothing's going on except those 3 things I just mentioned. Right? So, what Brackett's really saying is there's nothing out of the ordinary. In many ways, when Brackett doesn't see anything, and his thought in his mind's got to be, wait a second. This guy comes into town. He tells me there's a body. Okay, there's a body. Now he's telling me this killer is out here. But yet, he does not want me to alert people to lock their doors. Why? Why? For what? What would be the harm in that? If you tell someone there's a killer on the streets, generally, yeah, they're going to lock their doors. So, I don't blame. I used to put a lot of heat on the character. I don't know more. I think really human error trickles downward in John Carpenter's Halloween in a great way. Loomis comes to town knowing there's a body. I'm sure he tells them. But when he tells them about not contacting the radio, not telling people that there's a killer on the streets, so no one knows. That's what's most interesting about John Carpenter's Halloween. The human error in John Carpenter's Halloween sort of sets up a weird narrative in 2018, and I'm going to get into what I mean. Keep in mind that there's been no news bulletin. There's a killer on the streets. There's an escaped mental patient who killed his sister 15 years ago. His name's Michael Myers. There's been none of that on the radio partially because of Loomis and because of really Brackett not taking his own initiative in doing this either. Brackett still could have just disobeyed him, but he doesn't. He doesn't. We don't hear a breaking news bulletin in John Carpenter's Halloween about an escaped mental patient, an escaped killer. So the person who's been following Laurie Strode this whole time, we know it's Michael Myers. But Laurie Strode doesn't. She doesn't know who that is. And really, she stops paying attention after a certain point. Keep in mind, when Laurie Strode crosses the street later on to check out her friend's prank, she believes it's her friend's. That's her human error mistake, because she doesn't know there's a killer out there. Nobody in town, except with the exception of Loomis, the sheriff, and some of the sheriff's men. So publicly, from a public standpoint, no one knows Myers is out there. From a town standpoint, Laurie Strode, Annie Brackett, Linda Vanderklok, Bob Sims, none of them know. The town itself does not know. Enter 2018. Laurie Strode at times in 2018 acts like she knows Michael Myers like the back of her hand. Why? Why would she? They're not related anymore. Remember, they're not brother and sister. My biggest issue with 2018 at times, it feels like it doesn't know what movie it wants itself to be. It's weird because they have Andy Matichek's character Allison say, "Oh, that the brother or sister thing, that was just a rumor." Okay, great. And here's what I mean: when Laurie Strode says, "I've waited for him, he's waited for me." Okay, look. By the time that line gets uttered, the first part I believe, because they've already established the first part throughout the film that she's waited for him. They've already established that. The second part is hokey and iffy at best. I don't believe he's waited for her at all. 40 years ago, these two are complete strangers. Michael Myers does not know Laurie Strode from Adam. Laurie Strode doesn't know Michael Myers from Adam. They are complete and utter strangers. They don't know each other. They might know the names. That's it. What I mean by that is Laurie Strode might after 40 years would know his name is Michael Myers. Yeah, because things would get found out. But do you think Michael Myers really gave a shit about what her name was? You think Michael Myers stopped and asked, "Hey, girl whose throat I'm about to slit in the back of a car, what's your name?" No, he didn't do that. He didn't ask the people's names. He was too busy killing people. He didn't ask Laurie Strode her name. He was too busy trying to kill her. 2018 sort of presents a false narrative of these two actually knowing each other through Laurie. And that's where the film sort of hurts itself. My favorite part in 2018, where I feel they established Laurie Strode the most, is before the bus accident, before the crash. Laurie Strode is waiting on the prison bus. She's sitting in her car, and she closes her eyes, and there's this imagery of Michael walking toward her, and she screams. That is my favorite scene, and you want to know why? Because it let me know who Laurie Strode was right then and there. Laurie Strode is somebody who 40 years later wonders, why her? Why her friends? Why did he come after us? Why did he kill my friends? Why was I the survivor? She has a bit of survivor's guilt 40 years later, as she should. This wasn't something they were expecting to happen to them, any of them. That's why some of them are dead. So, really, if you're going to point to the randomness of John's Halloween and say, oh, this was just all random, then Laurie Strode shouldn't be acting like she knows Michael Myers like the back of her hand. She's not his sister anymore. That is one of 2018's biggest problems. They did not need those lines. They already established Laurie Strode was waiting for Michael Myers. She was wanting Michael Myers to escape. She wants to kill him. They've established that. Did they establish enough that Dr. Loomis wanted to kill him going off in 1978? I think so. I think they established enough because Here's my thing. He says, she says, what do I give him when we take him in front of the judge? It's the Thor scene or something, I forget. So she says he'll barely be able to sit up. Maybe Loomis was gonna give it to him right as the judge, before that, because he knew that would still be in his bloodstream, so he could kill him later or kill him in the courthouse. Who knows? Yes, I do feel that 2018 did establish that just enough to say Loomis might have wanted to kill Myers, and it's understandable why. I do feel they established that, but they did not need the verbiage of Laurie Strode saying certain things. That scene in the truck, I loved. All they needed to do was have Laurie continue to try to find him. I do feel she takes her daughter to the house, and she's waiting for him to come. He doesn't come by himself, and he shouldn't. But Sartain leading him there, yeah, I didn't love that at all. I didn't. Or taking him there, I didn't love that. I didn't. I just felt that I don't mind the heel turn. I've said this. I do not mind the heel turn of Dr. Sartain. I just wish they wouldn't have had Michael Myers in that scene to do it. You don't need two heels in one scene to turn someone else heel. You can have those same two babyface characters in the Deputy Hawkins and Allison, in that scene with Sartain to still turn Sartain heel. Hell, you could have took this to the Myers house and turned him heel. You could have did it there. Maybe someone's living in the Myers house and just no one's home and they go in. Who knows? They could have did it that way. And they turn him heel there. You don't, to me, them having Michael Myers in that scenario just made that look awful. Again, I don't mind his heel turn, but the way they do it is shit. So those are my two biggest issues with 2018. My other biggest issue, my third and final, is I don't feel they had Michael Myers really stalk Allison. I feel they could have done that way, way better and way more efficiently. To me, there's a scenario where they go in the backyard. Instead of having him try to kiss Allison, he could have just he was on the verge. He did confess to her his feelings, but he could have just gave the confession and say, "I do feel that way about. I feel, I like you a lot, more than friends." He could have did that, and she could have just said, "I just want to be friends. I appreciate your honesty." And then she goes, "Did you see that?" And then he turns, "What?" And she looks and she thought she saw something. "You don't see what?" And she goes, "I thought I saw somebody standing in the yard." Sort of a call out to 78 where Laurie Strode, "I saw someone standing in Mr. Riddle's backyard. Here's your call out to that." And then boom. The reason Michael misses stabbing her is because he lunges in front of her, stopping him from killing her. He saves Allison's life. Instead of making him look like a shit heel, you could have made him look like a hero. And she ends up running because of it to get help. And Michael Myers gives chase. That you could have had. Again, there's so much here there was a lot of meat left on the bone with 2018. And I feel that's the biggest difference with 78 and 2018 too, that when I watch 78, I don't feel there's a bunch of meat left on the bone. It's just like, oh my God, tell me more about this. Give me more of this. And then when you see Halloween 2, there's more. When you see 2018, I feel 2018 at times at times leaves you with a lot of what if. What if they did this different? What if they did that different? This movie could have been way better and way different. I've given this movie a 7, and that's where it's going to stay. I can't lower it because it is entertaining to watch and it is pretty good. But is it perfect? Is it the perfect sequel? No. By far, is it perfect? Um, it just isn't to me. Again, Laurie Strode should not know Michael Myers because 40 years ago she didn't even know he was out there. No one did, but a handful of people. It wasn't public knowledge until sometime after the gunshots. Because remember, the kids in 78, they don't get out the house until right as Loomis is coming upon it. So the police would have only just been getting called either sometime as the shots were happening or right after. So that's the time frame I'm giving that. Um, Again, 2018 had its issues. Is it perfect? No. Is it a good film to watch? Yeah, it is. It is good to watch. It just, I look at it and I go, man, if they did this, and this different, man, that'd have been great. But they don't. So that's my overall of 78 and 2018. I prefer the ending of 78 because Michael Myers is just out there somewhere. He's out there somewhere. I love that. Um, 2018's ending, the fire, she wanted to kill him so bad. Why didn't she just shoot him? Again, they're setting up. I feel 2018 tries too hard to set up a sequel because we all know ends and kills is coming. And there is such a thing as trying too hard to set up a sequel. We know Michael Myers is going to escape that burning building. Overall, again, look, 78 gets a 10. There's no beating an original sometimes, and that's the case. 2018 gets a 7 for me. Good film. Good film, just needed some stuff to be different. I feel at times they try too hard to be the sister connection at times with their verbiage. Not necessarily the feel of it, the verbiage of it. Because when you have a brand new character say that was just a rumor, right there, Allison won me over. Right there. And another place she won me over is when she showed me she was in the middle of her mom and grandma. She didn't take one side over the other. She understood both sides of it, which I loved because it wasn't what John Tate was. John Tate was somebody who wasn't necessarily on his mother's side. He was more in it for himself. And again, I love John Tate for that because he heard this shit for 18 years. He absolutely should be fed up with it. With Allison, she seems to be more understanding of both sides, which I love. She's her own character. That's great. But when you have Laurie Strode say, I've waited for him, he's waited for me, you're sort of almost stepping on Allison's words. And that hurts. That hurts a big deal. So that's my narrative of this. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me hear you guys' thoughts. Have a happy Michael Myers Monday.